100 people there, and it's good that Chris and the team are continuing to go with the sustainability theme into 2024, and I think you'll see that our speakers today, they'll be, I'm sure, commenting on that as well. Yeah, I looked back at the pictures and from that event, and I noticed a couple of things. The first thing I noticed was that there were a lot of Gen Y, Gen Z young leaders attending. And in fact, when I sort of did the closing remarks, a lot of the questions were coming from that generation, which was great. And the other thing I noticed is that most of that group were women. So it's wonderful that we've got two young women today that are going to tell their story and give their insights and perspectives on Gen Y, Gen Z leadership. So before we get into the main agenda, I just wanted to say hi to those people that I've worked with before, and welcome to any new members. It's great to have you as part of this group, and I think together we can map out a really good 2024. Again, keeping the theme around youth leadership, and rather than hearing from the boomers like Chris and I, hearing the voice of young leaders. They've been analysed to death, these two generations. So it'll be good to actually hear, straight from their experiences, and nothing like some lived experience to be able to ask people questions about. So before we get into that, then I'd just like to hand over to Chris, and I think he's got an update for you all. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you very much, Dr. Paul, over there in New Zealand. Such a long way away.
Yeah.
Gosh, talk about global village. This virtual event is the epitome of how a global village can look. New Zealand, Jakarta, Southeast Asia, the UK, and Canada. Absolutely marvelous. Thanks very much, and thank you to our panelists. Ibuwita, co-chair of the group, will be doing the more formal introduction to Michaela very shortly. I'd just like to say, from my role as CEO of BritCham, that it's great that this Human Capital and Education Hub is doing its first virtual event of 2024. This will be one of 3 virtual events. There'll also be 3 in-person events, and somewhere in between all of that, I know the team is putting together an extremely meaningful set piece event as well. Without whose support, it'd be very difficult for us to embark upon the forward planning that we're able to do so. So thank you, ACCA. I would also like to thank this event partner, which is the Dharma Group as well. In terms of BritCham, for those of you who don't know, as just a very quick headline introduction, we are an organization of 250 or so entities. Those entities are represented by around about 1,000 nominees. The Human Capital and Education Hub is one of 7 hubs. Do keep an eye on the others. Climate Change and the Environment, which has its first set piece event on Monday. Smart Sustainable Cities, SMEs, technology and digitalization, health, well-being, and life sciences, the Professional Women's Hub as well. I think that was 7. I hope it was. Also, our Britcham Business Centre continues to provide first-class market access support to entities outside Indonesia looking to help them embark on the journey of discovery and success with doing business in Indonesia. And I need to very proudly mention the Britcham Education Centre, which is going from strength to strength. It takes a lot of its inspiration from the leadership that it's experienced with Dr. Paul and Ibu Wita, and also other board members as well. Just completed the Study UK and Careers Fest last Saturday. I was explaining to Paul earlier, double the number of registrations, double the number of attendees, double the number of potential students sat having conversations with universities. The pipeline is robust for 2024 and 2025. If any of you on this call have friends, family, business associates, colleagues that have the ambition for international education and could be persuaded into having a look at the UK as an option, based on the tremendous tradition of UK education standards, then we would be delighted to provide them with information and ultimately support as well. This is the Gen Z, no, X leadership. Our future is in their hands. I have not been called a boomer before, Paul, but thank you for that.
There you go. You're welcome.
And as you say, as a boomer, happy to step back and leave it in the hands of the rather more energetic and more contextually savvy youngsters. Over to you, Ibu Wita.
Thank you, Pak Chris. Allow me to good afternoon. Say good afternoon from Jakarta. Allow me to introduce myself before I introduce our very special young speaker today, Michaela Samantha, who will be speaking from Vancouver, Canada. Your date is 27 February around midnight. Yeah. My name is Wita. I'm a National Director of Duke of Edinburgh International Award, a global framework for non-formal education and learning in Indonesia. Because of the award, I knew Michaela from 5 years ago, maybe more than 5 years ago, since she was in the high school doing her bronze award. She's also a silver and gold awardee. Now, Michaela wore several interesting hats or roles as a scientist, a woman scientist, or inventor in a startup entrepreneur in Canada, a member of World Bank Youth Advisory Group to discuss about the solutions for employment for young people. And also, she is still a student. Will be very soon finalize or complete your university, yeah, the graduate class. Let's hear directly from Michaela Samantha as a Gen Z representative about her aspiration regarding leadership and maybe her plan.
Okay, so hello everyone. My name is Michaela. So I'm currently the University of British Columbia university student. I have a major in biology, but I work in engineering. I also have minor in business. So regarding what I'm currently doing, I have a venture. I have one exit from my previous ventures. It's a tech startup in Canada, Vancouver. One of our co-founder is the former CEO of Coach and Steve Madden, also Lululemon. Right now, we're currently moving into a sustainable fashion field. So that's like regarding career, but I'm also very active in advisory group community in the World Bank organization. Regarding volunteering, Ms. Wita has been helping me getting involved more and more into my community. So yeah, that's currently what I've been doing right now.
Thanks, Michaela. So, Michaela, can you just sort of is it okay if I just ask you a question just to
Yeah, for sure.
Just take us through your sort of your career thinking and how it's evolved, you know, from being a younger person and maybe some of the turning points for you.
It starts with a passion, I guess. So because like million people, they have millions passions. Each individual, they have their own interests. So instead of having this mentality of I need to achieve something, how about we have the mentality of like what I do like to do and how can I improve myself in that particular field and how can I help me, myself first, and then other people, and then maybe the world.
Wow. So it's very much values and purpose driven, right?
Yes, yes. It's more toward improving yourself first, then you can help other people. And then, for example, if you do like music, maybe you can improve yourself in that particular field. And then maybe you can start arranging compose a music for people that has disabilities, for example. And then you can help people.
Yeah. So in a leadership sense, what you're saying is that self-leadership is the first step. Yeah. Self-leadership is the first step before you then go on and learn how to lead others. Yeah.
Yeah, because you yourself is your biggest enemy. If you cannot control yourself, why do you think that you can lead other people? Right?
Good point. And the other thing I noticed from your introduction there was that it's quite a portfolio, eh? You know, I don't know whether you know the word polymath, but a polymath is someone who can sort of go across the arts and the sciences and, you know, and be comfortable in each space. And it seems that you've got a bit of a combination going with some of the ingredients in your life and career, right? Did I get that right?
To be perfectly honest with you, I only focus on one thing and the others, it's kind of like a chain reaction. I just stumbled. Yeah. So for example, I have very academic background. I have a very scientific background. I'm a very technical person. I have a very hard time talking to other people back then. Then I started my Duke of Edinburgh journey because one of my teachers convinced me to do it. He told me that it might be good for my university application. And to be perfectly honest, that's the reason why I started Duke of Edinburgh. But then I fell in love with the program. I learned how to connect with people. I learned many other survival skills. I get to know Miss Vita really well. And from there on, it's just your commitment, dedication to, you know, finish the program, and then you will reap the benefits in terms of experiences, in terms of mentality, in terms of how you think, critical thinking skills.
Yeah. But you know, you've stepped out of your comfort zone, really, haven't you? It's what you've been doing. You've been stepping out of your comfort zone. You've been challenging yourself and stretching yourself, and with that has come new experiences. Is that correct?
I would say I'm pretty average. I feel I have any skills that any other students do have. I think the one distinction that I do have in comparison to a lot of my peers would be my commitment toward things. I would stay consistent on the things that I would choose to do. So maybe I genuinely believe that 80% of the students, as long as they put their minds into doing the program they choose to do, then they could do better.
Good observation. No, thank you for that. And what about the interest in sustainability? Could you tell us a little bit about that part of your purpose?
I think we are entering this realm, or if you will, generation that are more conscious. I feel whenever we go buy clothings, accessories, these days there are certain market segment where people do feel comfortable when the way or the process of making these products are more sustainable. Or I think people tend to think more critically these days. So that's a good thing. But I think there's also a need of action on how to do things sustainably and efficiently, while also cater to these qualities that we previously have.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll just open it up to the floor. Does anyone else have any questions for Michaela?
Yeah. Any question will do.
Michaela, can I ask you another question? And I know I was sort of joking with Chris about, you know, the boomer generation. As it's have you found it a challenge working with let's call them older generations in you know, in the way that perhaps some of our peers are, hopefully not Chris and I, because we're two enlightened beings, right? But have you come across any challenges in expectation, or in any differences in expectation, or even ways of working or thinking?
I do actually have a lot of funny stories about that, but maybe if I could generalize, most older generations, they frown upon less conservative approach of doing things. So when these younger generation have a very unorthodox way of doing things, they tend to be very defensive, and that to a very toxic working environment. So there's this need of mediator in any workplace environment that could de-escalate the situation. And I would say those older generation do have their own unique behavior that we younger generation have a very hard time understanding. But it's in the workplace, I guess, like, it's about compromise. So as long as you're very understanding and very respectful toward each other, I don't think that it would be such a big problem. It depends on the individual, honestly. But I would say, yeah, I do encounter some very interesting individuals.
Well, yeah, go on, carry on.
And the funny part is, I actually did not expect somebody from that stature to behave that way, but they have this sense of superiority because they you know, have more experiences. They are older than you, so maybe sometimes you just need to, you know, give them a leeway or whatnot.
Sure. Yeah, well, be patient with us for a little bit longer, because actually you know, I mean, alongside generations X and Y, you're actually becoming the majority in workplaces now. So you know, I mean, and that's that sort of signals quite a huge culture change, I guess, at some point.
Yeah. And I think it's also harder to earn their respect. For example, I think they do care about appearances. For example, this is a very personal experience. I would not generalize this to anybody else. But for example, in my case, in my field, engineering, these older generations, they have a very hard time actually accepting ideas from a young woman in comparison to men, for example.
You stressed woman.
Yeah, it's woman.
Yeah.
Because I think like it's a very male dominated field.
Yes,
but I think like it's getting better these days. So yeah, I sometimes I need to do extra work to even earn respects like from my peers and my
Yeah.
supervisors, even though I work twice than the others, for example.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. No, thank you so much. Thank you so much for being so open and and clear about those insights. That's really helpful. Sure, it's helpful to the audience. Does anyone else have any questions before? It's a good cue perhaps to bring in Biba. But does anyone have any more questions? Witta.
And Michaela, there is a question from Ayesha Ramadania. Please give us a tips how to get along but still respect the older generation when you are in the organization. Thank you. So Ayesha, maybe you want to open the camera?
Yeah. So I will answer that question first. I think learning first, you need to know that they are not your enemy. So you do not need to antagonize them. They're our friends, they're our co-worker. So you need to come in with that kind of mentality first. And then second is to understand where they're coming from. Why do they behave like that? And what makes them show that behavior toward you. And after you're understanding these things, then you can proceed on finding the solution and then act upon it, I think. And if, for example, at some point that you've done all of these things and things do not change, then you need to speak up. You need to tell other people, because that is not okay. And you shouldn't accept any harassment, either verbally, physically, or mental harassment in the workplace. Yeah, I think that's the rule of thumb that I would go for.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
There is another question from Mbak Nurul. Biba, please ask directly.
What do you think is the hardest skill for Gen Z and Gen Y to master? I think we have a very hard time accepting criticism, because us younger generation, we always think that we are right in some sense, to some extent. And we think that older generation, whenever they do give us advice, it comes from backward mentality. But that's not necessarily the case all the time. It'd be that they do have experience and they do want you to improve. So sometimes you need to have this wisdom to be able to know the difference when they do have this kind of backward mentality and when they do want you to improve and they do have constructive criticism for you. I think, yeah, that's the important part. I think that's the huge predicament right now between older and younger generations. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for the question and the answer, of course, Michaela, again. Biba, I think this might be a good opportunity to introduce you and
Sure.
And yeah, and I'm not going to steal your thunder, because you can, just like Michaela, perhaps you can tell us a little bit about your career story. Yeah. But your perspective is going to be quite helpful, I think, because you're at the front end of the HR process in a way. The recruitment channel, and then listening to sort of recruiting managers and what their expectations are to fulfill roles, and of course, in this context, we're particularly interested in how they think about filling leadership roles. Yeah, and so I'd be interested in and I'm sure the audience will be in some of your analysis, insight, experience, around that. But Michael Page has been doing a lot of research in this field, right? And I've worked closely with Ollie, and I know he's passionate about our topic tonight. Yeah, so yeah, just if you don't mind, just perhaps start with your story and then we'll just continue from there, if that's okay.
Sure, definitely. Thank you very much, Michaela and Paul. So again, hi everyone. I'm Habiba. You can call me Biba, and currently I'm working as a senior consultant at Michael Page. So for you who don't know, Michael Page is actually UK listed recruitment consultant. And for me myself, I am specializing in recruitment for finance roles within industrial and manufacturing sectors. So my journey actually began with studies in business management and human resources back in Japan. And then after that, I worked in Michael Page Japan for 2 years, and then continuing my career in Michael Page Indonesia. Also, I'm pursuing my master's degree at the moment in business and strategic leadership at Harriet Watt University in Edinburgh. So, having worked extensively in HR and recruitment across various industries and generation, I really hope that today I can bring perspective for you to understand how Gen Z and Gen Y leadership can actually helpful, and then how we this particularly from human resource standpoint, drawing this from both academic knowledge and my practical experience. So again, back to Paul's questions about what I feel about leadership in Gen Y and Gen Z, especially in corporate world. So I see that recently there are actually a lot of companies, they are starting to pay more attention on diversity, inclusivity, and sustainability. They want to achieve these values. It's one of the biggest homework for almost all multinationals or also national companies. However, probably for the previous generation do not have a lot of exposure about how to achieve these goals.
Yeah.
Therefore, I see that there are a lot of tendencies for these multinational companies to hire successors from younger generations, especially from Gen Y and Gen Z, because we are the one who can be the agent of change. We can
Yeah.
bring a fresh ideas on how the company can actually boost their performance and also achieve these values. Another thing that I see in multinational and also in a local company is that when they hire a candidate, especially the younger generation, they try to see someone who are not only specialized in one skill. Someone have to know multiple skills. Just for example, Michaela learned about science, but in other hand, she also understand about entrepreneur skills.
Yeah.
So one skill is not enough nowadays. You need to know something else. For example, a company looking for a finance manager, it's not enough for you to only know about how to calculate things, but you also know how the business work, how to use software tools, and we have to go beyond that. We have to know more than one skills. Yes, another thing also about the requirements when it comes to Gen Z or Gen Y candidates. They hope that the person is not only tech savvy. Tech savvy is one thing, it is definitely important, but they also have to have a good attitude. Since what it means by good attitude is that this person have to have a good resilience and have to understand about how to think long term, have a long term thinking, because they see that recently Gen Y and Gen Z, it's totally different with previous generation. They tend to stay in a company for 10 or 15 years. However, the recent generation, probably 3 months or after a year, will decide to change job. That's a unique survey that we actually gathered. Since for Gen Z and Gen Y, when we face a challenge, we tend to try to avoid it and step to another. Just try to change the company.
Sure.
Rather than just try to embrace and understand how we actually can improve by solving these challenges. So this is something that the multinational companies try to see, someone who are not jumpy, who are not seeing challenges as something that they can avoid, but seeing a challenge as something that you can learn from it and be the tool for you to grow. So I think those three are the trends that I'm seeing at the moment from the HR perspective.
Oh, that's really helpful. And in fact, Michaela mentioned herself. She mentioned commitment and resilience, and the entrepreneurial bit's quite interesting, isn't it? Because I mean, the world is changing so fast. I mean, there's so much disruption. A lot of it unforeseen, and a lot of it, you're right. A lot of it, Bebo, is driven by the young persons themselves, you know, who are probably very curious and want to collect skills and experiences and all the rest of it. But you know what? There's nothing to stop an employer encouraging younger people alongside the resilience and perhaps a slightly longer form of commitment. There's nothing to stop them encouraging them to reinvent their own jobs or reinvent a new part of the work system. Or I mean, so there are ways and means of actually tapping in to that to encourage a Gen Y, Gen Z person to hang on in there. Do you agree?
I concur. It's so funny, Paul, that you said that. I just did a market analysis recently. Apparently, the CAGR of 15% first reached by our generation because we are so, how do I say this, disruptive in terms of AI, tech, and also very adamant on raising fund. And as VCs, like younger VCs, they're very formidable in front of investors. We look into angel investors and whatnot. It's crazy.
Yeah. So you know, so employers would do well to try and tap that, wouldn't they? While they've got you around. I think that's really important. Really important. Bieber, anything else that occurs to you, or Michaela, just as a result of that little interchange? Any other?
Chris wants to say something, I guess.
Yeah, thanks, Michaela. Paul, stop shutting out the boomers, please.
Yeah, well, go on. Yeah, I knew it wouldn't last very long, so you carry on.
No, boomers are great. I love them. They're one of my mentors. I treat them like, seniors, parents, brothers, sisters. I love them.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
I think
we're still in the family. We're still in the family, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure I speak for Paul when I say you say the sweetest things, Michaela.
Come on, Chris.
It was just really driven by one of the three traits that Bieber just mentioned earlier, and correct me if I misunderstood here, but I think what you said was that one of the reasons why younger people move on so quickly is that they find themselves with a challenge that they prefer not to take on, and therefore move on to avoid dealing with the challenge or being found short in coming up with a solution. Paul, this is for discussion, I think. To Paul, to Bieber, to Michaela, and Ibuwita here. I find that worrying in the sense that how can as boomers, as we are entering our sunsets, right, Paul? How can we enter those sunsets with a high degree of confidence that actually the next generation of leadership is there, if that leadership is based on conflict and solution and challenge avoidance?
Was that a question for
anyone?
me or for anyone? For anyone. Yeah. I mean, I've got a thought on it, but maybe the two ladies have as well.
First, I would say the avoidant style is actually a weakness, not an advantage. I think Nurul was presenting it in a way that like it's something that we should work on. We do have the tendency to do that. So that's why if we can just overcome that, then we could be better as a generation. And second of all, I feel we do have this kind of impulsivity that previous generation haven't seen before. And because of that, it's kind of a double-edged sword in a way that it is our charm that we are very innovative, we're very disruptive, but at the same time we're very not sturdy in a way in terms of stability, security. So I think that's one way to look at it. Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. Biba, did you have any observation on Chris's
Sure.
point? Yeah.
Yes, I think this is a very, very interesting question, and I believe this is also a homework for our generation to actually improve on that. And I actually believe that every generation have their own strengths and weaknesses. Our generation might be tech savvy, but we don't know a lot probably about life lessons, how to be wise, how to actually face those challenges and be a good leaders, while probably boomers generations, they are not really having a lot of exposure in how to use technology, hence they are very good in life lessons and groom people. Thus this, I believe we need a collaborations between the previous generation and the current generation, and we both have to understand the importance of that collaborations, and that's the only way we can make a sustainable succession plan.
Yeah. And Chris, my take on this is that our generation that is working with younger people, we need to upskill ourselves, and particularly in leadership mentoring. I mean, we need to rise to that challenge and learn more about the mentoring skills. We've got a lot of experiences to share, and there are a lot of older age entrepreneurs as well, right? Let's not sort of wipe out entrepreneurship, as a province of young people. It isn't right. And so I think we need to up our game, and of course the better way of doing it is not the older person to the younger person, but to do co-mentoring. You know what I mean by co-mentoring? And I mean, Biba, you just said, so why not us learn some more about tech and creativity and some take on, I don't know, customer expectations, out there, because it's the young people that are getting a lot of buying power, as well. So I think probably we need to do some more co-mentoring. What do you think? I mean, that would be my take on it. And I think then you build a mutually supportive relationship, do you not?
Yes, complementing each other. Exactly. Yeah.
So I think some upskilling for us as well, to meet them halfway.
True. Yeah.
Rita, did you have anything?
I add, because like intergenerational collaboration is very important. Besides, the older need to help support, and also the younger one need to maybe educate the tax technicalities and many other that our generation cannot reach out. So collaboration is, I think, the
The
best.
more the merrier. The more the merrier. I think like two brains is always better than one.
Anyone else out there like to ask any questions to what are clearly two leadership role models for Gen Z in front of us today? So now's your opportunity. Let's start tapping into their insights. Any questions for anyone out there? For Biba or Michaela, or myself, or Chris, or Witter?
I do have a question for Chris, actually, after that.
Yeah, go for it. We can ask questions of one another. That's fine too.
Okay, so if, for example, in your workplace, there's younger intern or younger generation that comes in with new, fresh ideas. What do you feel like? What do you hope? What do you expect from them? I just want to know from your point of view how it is.
That's a very interesting question, and I think first of all that there is before I begin to answer, I'd just like to preface it by saying it is very clear from all the companies within our membership that I get the opportunity to visit and sit and talk to, that the approach of the older leadership or older managers varies enormously. The gap in approach and attitude and how they embrace younger people is substantially different. At a personal level, I love what younger people bring to our office at Britcham. Whilst I fully appreciate where Paul is coming from, and Michaela, your point in relation to, two is better than one, and Wita talking about intergenerational sharing and so on. I have sort of taken a view, and I am generalizing here, but I've sort of taken the view personally that as somebody who's a tech dinosaur, I'll say it because it saves my team the embarrassment of coming on, that my time actually is not necessarily best engaged in trying to get up to speed on tech, because I'm surrounded by people who are brilliant at it, for whom it's just a natural attribute and skill and talent. So I would, whilst there is definitely, I agree, there's definitely opportunity for this intergenerational or sharing of talents and skills, and I think it's an excellent approach to keep in the locker. Sometimes, the time challenge doesn't make that easy to happen, but that doesn't mean it should be impossible. The other thing that I like to do in my style of leadership, Michaela, which works with some and doesn't work with others that cross my path and spend time, as you say, as either intern or a young adult in their first or the second job, maybe, is I like to give a lot of latitude for them to express themselves and to make their own mistakes. I'm a great believer in an organization like ours, which is a smaller organization. Smaller organizations are bereft of often financial resource and time resource to be able to invest in structured human resource development. The best type of development opportunities are actually learn as you go, looking at real case examples, things we have done well, Why did we do well? How can we replicate that? How can we do even better? Why did we make mistakes? Why did it fall short? What can we learn? How can we fill gaps? How can we make sure it doesn't happen again? I do believe that the lessons that are learned by doing, even though from time to time they might be a little bit painful, they might be a little bit embarrassing, they might be somewhat discomforting, they're often learned best as well. And there's just one other thing that I would like to say in terms of, again, you asked about my style and my approach in the context of BritCham, and that is encouraging one particular thing, which also speaks to an observation that I have picked up in the culture of younger Indonesians, and that is not to want to be seen to not know the answer to something. So, one thing I do encourage is that it is a sign of strength and not a sign of weakness to know when you need help. So leave them to it, give them lots of latitude, plenty of scope to express themselves, fill all of those gaps of creativity, technology, and so on that there are with vis-a-vis somebody like myself, but at the same time with the knowledge of you are not on your own actually, but maturity, wisdom is also about knowing when I'm a little bit defeated and I need help and I'm not alone, and it's not a sign of weakness. It's a character strength.
Thank you, Krish.
Chris. Jean had a question. Jean, are you still there?
Yeah, still here, Chris. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Jean. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to get the ladies' feedback about Gen Z, Gen Y have been accused of being quite a selfish generation, and with a me first approach, what I want to do, what my passions are. Whereas in a leadership role, actually the focus should be on about the people around you and mentoring the people.
Jean, we just lost the sound there. Are you still with us?
I guess you got a connection problem, Dr. Paul.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, I think you probably got the gist of her question, Michaela.
Yeah, maybe Nurul, if you want to start first, maybe I can add
Yeah,
on to it.
sure.
Okay, thank you very much, Jean, for the question. I think to paraphrase, Jean tried to ask about how Gen Y and Gen Z actually can be a good leader while they're actually very self-centered generation. Well, this is, I think, one of the challenge for us as well to be the leader, since one of the characteristic of these Gen Y and Gen Z, we are very self-centered. However, self-centered does not mean that we cannot work with other people, actually. As a Gen Y and Gen Z, we actually still love to work with people. However, probably there are times where we do not want to, only focus on, we also need time to focus with ourselves. So what this generation should learn is actually to know when is the time to prioritize ourselves and when is the time to actually prioritize the team.
Yeah.
I don't think we can say to the Gen Z, do not think about yourself. It's something almost impossible because they will always think about themselves.
Yeah.
But what we can actually encourage them is actually when is the time to think about yourself and when is the time to actually think about the team. For example, when it's about something that will impact a lot of people, definitely we cannot only think about ourselves. But then definitely there is a moment where we have to know, for example, there are a lot of work. However, we are also draining ourselves. We are also stressful, and we cannot even lead the team if we are not feeling well, for example. And
Yeah.
probably at that particular cases, we have to, pay attention to our health first before something else. For instance, those kind of things, I think we have to learn, to be a better leader. So anything, Michaela, if you want to add?
Yeah, to add to that, I think like the thing that I learned in my workplace would be there's two type of people in this world. There's like the result-oriented people and there's like people-oriented people. And I think our generation, we are rewarded when things are very result-oriented, for example, project goals or targets. So we tend to be a very selfish generation in which I think because of the competition too between peers, our generation's
Right.
competition hurdles is way heavier than older generation, I must say. So we are forced sometimes to get ahead in comparison to our peers, for example. So I think it's just like a community socio problem as a generation. But I do believe that like there's the need of moderation in between when you need to be a team player and when you need to focus on results. Because again, as Jean question, focus on the fact that I think like people in our generation, we really focus on passion in comparison to compromise for other people's benefit, for example. But I think that's not a bad thing. Why? Because I feel like people, whenever they do what they like, whenever they do what they
Right.
believe in, whenever they do what they are with, how do I say this? Like natural talents that they have, they tend to actually produce better result than people
Right.
than when they do, for example, do a 9 to 5 that they really hate. I see it that way sometimes. So sometimes it's not really good to over compromise for other people's
Yeah.
benefit, but it's not really good to be selfish and then just get ahead by yourself. I think that's the
I
thing.
mean,
Yeah.
for me, the distinction is, and thank you both, because I think you sort of spelled this out, is that it's important for anyone in a leadership role to have a strong sense of purpose, to have a strong sense of self. Of course, because otherwise, where are they heading? You know, what's their strategy? What direction are they going in? What drives them? I mean, you have to have that strong sense of purpose, right? You have to have that. But what you must never have is selfishness. It's
Yeah.
selfishness that destroys the team spirit. So you know, hitting targets, getting the rewards, if it's all just about me and what I get out of it, then you immediately destroy the team morale. Yeah. So for me, that's the difference in looking at it having worked with, thousands of leaders of all generations across the world. And the people that are selfish don't last very long, actually.
I
They
totally
get
agree.
rewards. They often get rewards and they go away with big pay packets. But their careers end up being sort of, they're shorter careers, generally speaking. They make less of a whole contribution to business and society, than the ones that have got a strong sense of purpose and vision and are looking out for the benefit for others as well as themselves. Yeah.
It's true. Repetition actually is your lifeline in workplace. Whenever you go, you carry that with yourself. So I think you shouldn't take credits over other people's work. You should not be selfish. Exactly. I think like sometimes two different individuals, they have the same vision, but could have different results, depends on like how they act upon it.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes. Maybe to add on a little bit as well, I think this is also something to do with, the feeling of Gen Z and Gen Y to have a feeling that they can control things, So sometimes that's why, for example, these Gen Y and Gen Z, they work in 9 to 5 jobs where they have to listen to their boss. They're actually, try to understand that they need to be the team there. But in other hand, sometimes they also still have this selfishness or the urge to having full control towards something. Thus, that probably also this is the cause why sometimes Gen Z, they have like their side hustle or they have their own business where
Yeah,
they
yeah.
can actually just
Yeah.
be in control.
Yeah.
I would like to disagree. I'm very sorry. I think we cannot use that as an excuse as our generation, because I feel like listening to your boss, understanding the culture of the workplace, it has been there since like generation eons ago. Whenever people do work 9 to 5, I think like even in terms of rule and regulation, way back then, like it's way stricter. Like we have a very lenient workplace environment right now in comparison to back then. So I feel like the problem with our generation is more toward that we make these excuses to be able to, how do I say this, like leeway ourselves into doing some responsibilities. But there are some people that do need that. For example, as you said before previously, that I agree with when you're sick, you probably cannot lead, you probably cannot do a very efficient process, then you can take a rest, for example. But there are also some kind of people that use that kind of excuses to get away from their tasks or responsibility. So we, as a generation, it's our responsibility to be able to regulate that among our generation itself, I think.
Yeah, I think that's actually how they try to just regulate their feelings, because there is this trend where a lot of Gen Y and Gen Z, where they actually not only working in the corporate world, but they also have their own business, just like you do. Probably that's also what I'm trying to say, that in corporate world, they try to be more they pay attention on that, because in the corporate world you cannot do like it's about me, right? And then you have to understand about other people ideas and all. Meanwhile, in other hand, they also want to have a place where they can give all the creativity. Probably that's why they have their own business, so they can actually just do all the things and be creative there. So there's that kind of trend recently.
Exactly. It goes back to time management. For example, if they do have side hustle, then they can do that in their own available times. I think we need to be very considerate about how many ventures or how many side hustles that we take upon ourselves, because we do have a very limited resources. We do have a very limited time. So don't break your commitment or your dedication to people like supervisor work that you previously committed to deliver, for example, just for other ventures that might seem innovative at times, it might seem very lucrative, but then again there's a but I do agree with you, that's correct, because our generation
team we need to wrap up, and I always don't like this point, because here we are actually having a wonderful leadership coaching session, live together, and I hope the audience, for the audience it's felt like that. I mean, I know perhaps some of you had some other questions, but maybe they can post those questions in, and perhaps we can answer them later. So Weta, would you like to give a vote of thanks to our speakers, and then we'll draw it to a close.
Thank you very much for the insight that you both given to us. I think it's not about only us supporting you as a new leader, because our future is in your hand. but also you as a young generation giving us also support to understand more about the new things.
And once again, Chris and team, thank you so much for pulling everything together for this event. And yeah, it's been a lovely, I say a lovely evening. It's probably morning for you, Michaela. Anyway, so thank you very much for
It was
hanging
a
on in
new
there.
day.
So whatever it
Chris,
is,
what did you want to say? Yeah?
I just wanted to take the opportunity once again of thanking the annual partner of the group, ACCA, of our partner for today, Dharma Group as well. I also wanted to just emphasize that in the chat box, Moody has dropped a little note about a book, and it's Dr. Paul's book published by BritCham, 12 Leadership Practices to Sustain Livelihoods and Life, Future-Proofing People, Business, Society, and the Environment. And that went on digital format for the first time a couple of weeks ago on Amazon, and everybody is encouraged and welcome to go and acquire a copy of that book from Paul. A few hard copies remain with us here in the BritCham office. With that, I concur with Paul. What a lovely relaxed chat and some really, really invigorating, alternative, challenging ideas from everybody. Thank you, Michaela. Thank you, Biba, Ibuwita as well, and Dr. Paul and your leadership of the group over a few years now.
Thanks very much,
Paul.
everyone.
Nice to meet you, Nurul.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
good to meet you both.
Good to meet you
Bye
all.
now. Bye.
Have a nice day.
Bye bye.
May we take a picture first?
Oh, Bieber, I think, have we come offline? I don't know whether we have or not.
Oh, okay.